Jesse Waters, along with Kennedy, Juan Williams, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 9 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. This is a Fox News weather alert. Hurricane Irma, the strongest hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic, currently wreaking havoc in the Caribbean, with the storm forecasted to hit the United States mainland in the coming days. We're monitoring the storm, and we'll have a full update later in the hour. Now for our top story. Yesterday, we told you about President Trump's announcement that he's ending President Obama's controversial DACA program, which helped illegal immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. Although even many liberal legal analysts agree DACA is on shaky legal authority, the media is attacking President Trump as heartless and motivated by an animus towards Latinos.
The president's decision to end DACA was heartless and it was brainless. If this order stands, hundreds of thousands of families will be ripped apart.
This is one of the most cruel acts we've seen in the presidency in a long time. And the President Obama and President Trump not only disagree on policies, they disagree on values.
It's hard for me to see the big picture from a Republican point of view, Joe, going forward and just giving the back of your hand to people who have Hispanic surnames.
This whole gaslighting that's come to so many issues, especially racial issues in this country, it's so obvious. It's not even a dog whistle anymore. It's just flat out bias, flat out discrimination that they're touting coming from this White House.
So this is racist. Repealing Obamacare was racist. The travel ban was racist. Even Trump's speech in Poland was racist, Greg. When they don't have a policy argument to make, it's the racial attack. Is that right?
It's the most overused quiver that they have. You know, all Trump did is he made it legal. He put a ring on it. And think about it. I mean, think about it. He put it in the right place. It was in the wrong place. You know how delicious cookies are? I don't have the cookie jar in the bathroom next to the toilet. I keep it in the kitchen. What he did was he took something that should be in the Congress. He moved it into the right place. That's all he did. He made the public part of the decision, which is what should have been done. And both sides actually agreed that this is where it should be. He transferred the decision, not the dreamer. The dreamers are going to stay where they are. It's where the decision is going. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of when Reagan announced the registering of the draft. I think I was I don't know what year I was, in high school or something, and everybody got angry. Oh my God, he's Hitler. He's terrible. But it was necessary, and it didn't change a thing. It was just something that he felt he had to do because it was the legal right thing to do, but it didn't change a thing. If the media actually reported the story, they'd have nothing.
So the president is heartless and racist for following the Constitution. That is what the left is arguing.
Right. Well, and remember, my theory is that racism is greater than Russia. So that if they have a chance to say that a Republican is racist, they will take it almost every time. So this is something that Republicans deal with a lot. I do think that there's something to be said that if President Trump had just waited 3 weeks when one of the courts was going to strike this down, then he could have said, oh, okay, well, I guess we can't defend it. Then ask the Congress to do it. Then he probably wouldn't have had to deal with all of this. But remember, this pleased his base for a day. And then by the end of the night, everybody on that TV that you just saw that was complaining, actually, the president agrees with you. He said he wants DACA to get done. He wants to sign it into law. And if it's not, that's okay, because he'll revisit it then, because nobody has to worry about anything. So I don't understand why the right isn't more mad.
Right, because it seems like the left is angry when, in fact, the president agrees with many people on the left that the dreamers should be protected and they should find some sort of legal status permanently.
And that's the point, was the executive order didn't codify their immigration status. It really didn't. It wasn't a long-term, stable form of protection. Right. And as Greg pointed out at the beginning of the show last night, that's what made the whole thing so cruel. And it's very interesting because, Dana, you're absolutely right about race in the Republican Party, because any chance that opponents get, they will pin the racist tail on the elephant. And that's why there were so many Republicans who came out and so strongly admonished the president for his careless comments after Charlottesville, because it's such a sensitive issue, particularly a lot of the lawmakers from the South, for whom it is an ongoing issue from their childhood and you know, their ancestry. But having said that, the president wants DACA to pass, and I think that shows that we do have some complex issues in immigration. A lot of people want the wall. Most people, vast majority of people, want the Dreamers to be able to stay here if they were brought here against their will, and all they know is a great American life for a majority of them.
Juan, I'm going to hit you with a theoretical argument about illegal immigration, and just tell me if you think I'm wrong here.
Okay.
So if you're a white guy and you live in Texas and you cross the border into Mexico illegally, and you go down there for a few years and you're working cash jobs and you're driving without insurance and you're not paying any taxes and things like that, then the Mexican authorities catch you and they send you back to the United States. Is that mean and cruel and racist against white people, or is that just Mexico following the law?
I think it's Mexico following the law.
So why, when the United States does that to Mexicans, it's racist and cruel?
I love these because it's such false analogies.
It was a perfect analogy.
No, it's
You worked
not.
on it all.
Oh, man. All right.
I give it a 9 point. The Russian judge gives a 9.7 on the analogy.
Yeah, the analogy.
It's a Russian judge, though, so we're going to have to look into you.
I like
the analogy is a
the
total
scenario
setup.
that,
I mean,
that you
the
just
whole
get sent
issue
back to the
here,
U.S. without harm.
The whole issue, though, is I think, that you have a president who I think is very vulnerable to charges about racial bias, given what happened after Charlottesville, given what happened, as we've discussed with Sheriff Arpaio. And now the idea that you have, I think it's 15 states and District of Columbia filing a lawsuit saying that because 78% of these young people are Mexican, it's evidence of the president's ongoing displeasure with Mexicans. I mean, he's the one who's talked about murderers and thieves. He's the one who said the judge, who was of Mexican heritage, could not be a fair arbiter in his case. So he has some history here that loads the deck. I don't know that it applies to every Republican, but I think in this case, people are saying, hey, what's with Trump and these Mexicans? Why does he have this kind of hard edge to him? People say, well, what is it? It really speaks to his base. Today, you had Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, who's apparently well plugged in, saying, he really didn't want to do it. But guess what? Stephen Miller, and who was used to work for Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, and was an ally to Steve Bannon.
The author of the famous phrase, cosmopolitan bias.
There you go. That he wanted this, that he saw this as pleasing the Trump base, that you don't even have to do any winks and nods. You just do this, and they say, yeah, you go get them. But the fact is that if it's about jobs, it's about the economy, well, goodness gracious, most corporate executives in the country are saying, leave this alone. You have people saying, you know what, most of these kids contribute to the local economy. They're good kids, and yet, I don't know, President
so now
Trump
Democrats are siding with big business. I like that, Juan. Is there any risk to the Democrats making so much fuss about the plight of illegal immigrants and not really fighting for American jobs? You've talked about
I think it costs them elections. Now they don't realize that because the media is always on their side. So they think that they have this false sense of belief. They are living in a bubble. As Scott Adams would say, they're living in a different movie, so they don't see how they lost. And meanwhile, what you're having is you have a President Obama who rewarded people that were coming to America, but not people who were in America. And what Donald Trump leapt on was, like he said, all America. It's not just about them, it's about all of us. That was a winning vision. To your point, I'm always troubled by the thing about the judge. Like he said, the judge was a Mexican, so he can't. But do you know who does that? Lawyers do that when they're picking a jury. When they're picking men and women and blacks and whites and Hispanics. That's what he was doing what every single lawyer does. He looked at the judge, the judge is Mexican, he might not like me. That's what lawyers do. Lawyers do that, and he just did it, and yet somehow it's wrong. So people grab these little instances and they go, oh, he said this, he said this, he said this. But when you actually focus on them, they turn out to be light as air, puff away.
That's an interesting point because President Obama nominated a wise Latina to the Supreme Court just because he wanted someone with that background and
family
disposition.
background. Exactly. I
want to talk to Dana about a point you were just making about the base for President Trump. Rush Limbaugh had some things to say about that. Let's hear what he said.
What Trump did today via Sessions, it's almost along the same lines as pulling out of the Paris Accords. This is just, it's rocked them. They didn't think it would ever happen. Trump is not this callous. Trump is not this cold-hearted. But Trump knows his base. And he knows the impact all of this has had on the American economy and American jobs. And he's following through on one of his most predominant campaign commitments.
How would you assess that?
Well, all true. And then at 8:38 p.m. last night, which is after that show aired, President Trump tweeted that he's good with keeping DACA. So, like, in the morning, Jeff Sessions said that hundreds of thousands of jobs have been lost because of this, and we have to deal with something, we have to deal with it. And then not 12 hours later, I guess that's moot, because he wants to have a legislative solution, which I'm for a legislative solution as well. I do think there's a possibility of this. Congress has been very close on comprehensive, or whatever you want to call it, immigration reform for many years, like over 10 years, probably 3 or 4 times. But the thing that's different now is that there's now a deadline.
Right.
So it's 6 months. Okay, so a deadline can focus the mind, and it is possible that you might figure out a way to do this. What I would have done if I were Schumer and Pelosi today, when the president agreed with them on the debt relief bill, I would have said, while we're at it, sir, we would propose a straight up or down vote on DACA on Friday. We got the votes. You say you want it. They say they want it. We've got the votes. How about a deal?
There are enough.
They should have just done it.
Who want that?
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Get it off the table.
Here's the thing about what Jeff Sessions said, and this is what I take issue with. Whenever there's a logical fallacy falling from a politician's lips, I'm always dubious. That, you know, he says that hundreds of thousands of jobs have been taken by these dreamers, and that's my problem. And liberals suffer from this mostly. It's a new strain within the Republican Party, and that's the idea that economics is a zero-sum game. We know it isn't. We know that you can actually create more wealth. You can create more jobs. You can create more opportunity in this country for everybody. You just have to let the economy go and get the government out of the way.
So the problem, wait, hold on. Let me just say one thing. First to Greg, it's illegal for a lawyer to make a jury selection based on race. They can have exemptions where they don't have to explain it.
Right.
But it's illegal to say that because of someone's race, heritage, whatever. That's just not true.
They do it.
That's just not true, Greg. The second thing to say here is that Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, oh, you know what? President Trump wants a total fix. He wants comprehensive immigration reform plus DACA. So basically then, he's sending it back to Congress and saying, oh, well, I guess the odds are against this happening, but I'm going to claim that, oh, it's a legitimate place to do it. So he creates anxiety, fear in this community of young people who have jobs, high percentage, almost 80% working, paying taxes, contributing to local economies. He puts them on edge. And nobody says, hey, you know what? Why are you playing politics with this? And then muddling the whole issue of, is this comprehensive immigration reform or do you really want DACA?
Speaking of playing politics, though, why won't Democrats admit that it was a horrible idea on the part of President Obama? If they would stand up and say, this was a bad idea in the first place that set up this situation.
Well, you know who said that? Dianne Feinstein said it last night, and we played it just in case anybody wants a refresher. Coming up, we'll tell you about a story the mainstream media apparently doesn't want you to hear. We'll be right back.
For the first time in 36 years, a sitting senator is on trial for federal bribery charges. Democratic New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez's federal trial began today in New Jersey. Let's take a look at all the media coverage the trial is receiving.
Politico reports on the start today of the bribery trial. Senator Bob Menendez, the New Jersey Democrat, is accused of doing political favors for a Florida eye doctor in exchange for campaign donations and very lavish gifts. Both Menendez and the doctor deny the allegations, and both have pleaded not guilty. Menendez is the first sitting senator to stand trial for bribery in 40 years.
So the trial received a total of 22 seconds of coverage from the broadcast networks today, and that's not all. A 1,300-word piece in the New York Times previewing the trial initially failed to mention that Mr. Menendez is a Democrat. The piece was eventually updated to note the senator's political affiliation. Jesse, I do have a feeling, though, had it been a Republican, that would have been in the headline.
Absolutely. I mean, the only thing more, corrupt than politicians are the reporters that cover up for them. Ooh. Now, when I heard there was a New Jersey politician on trial for corruption,
that's why it's not news.
I assumed it was a Democrat. I just assumed that automatically. And what's he on trial for? Exchanging his donations for favors?
Yes.
Isn't that called politics? You have to throw the whole Senate in jail.
Shouldn't be covered.
But this is the honest truth. Ray Nagin, remember him?
Very well.
20 corruption charges, 20 counts, convicted. The networks didn't mention he was a Democrat. Congresswoman Corinne Brown, fraud conviction.
In Florida.
Never mentioned she was a Democrat either. Jesse Jackson Jr., also corruption, went to prison. No mention in Time Magazine or USA Today he was a Democrat. So this is how this works. You have Elliot Spitzer. Remember his little friends down in the hotel rooms? With the black socks,
yes.
Client number 9.
Oh, wasn't a baseball team.
The media only identified him as a Democrat 20% of the time. Mark Sanford, the governor of South Carolina, he had the little dalliance down there in South America with his mistress. 100% of the time, his party affiliation was mentioned. Sometimes they don't even cover the scandal at all. So you had William Jefferson. Do you remember the freezer guy, 90,000 in the freezer?
Cash.
Yeah, when he went to trial, they didn't even cover it on the network. So here's what I'm going to do. If I'm ever convicted and I'm on trial, I'm changing my party affiliation.
But do you know who else? Do you know who else they never mentioned who are Democrats? Statues.
That's true.
They never mentioned that the statues everybody's pissed off about are Democrats.
Except here.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Juan, when you're writing a story, does the party affiliation enter into your brain in terms of, is that an important part of the description for the lead paragraph?
No. I mean, it's important.
I mean, like, in AP style, how you do parentheses and then R-New Jersey.
Yeah, you put that down. You asked about the lead. I mean, that fits in. At some point, you got to identify who the person is, especially if it's an elected official. So I would think that would fit in. I don't understand why it wasn't in there. They say it was an oversight at the time.
They did correct it.
But I do think that that's something that then sort of feeds the Republican anxiety and insecurity. Oh my God, they always want to focus on Republicans when there's trouble, but not the Democrats. Oh, that damn media. But the fact is that in this case, I can't believe that anybody doesn't know that Bob Menendez is a Democrat. And I don't believe that anybody doesn't know Ray Nagin in the city of New Orleans, Democrats. I don't believe anybody didn't know that William Jefferson was a Democrat.
Of newspapers have no idea.
Should journalists just assume that every reader knows the facts?
No, I would agree. And in this case,
we should just assume that President Trump is a president, so you don't even have to put president.
No, they put president.
It's so formal
and
exhausting.
It's like reporting on a football player without saying what team he's playing for.
Or what position.
No, but I think that in this case, the other thing to consider, Dana, is that the indictment was so long ago.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago, and people were focused on it at that time. Now that the trial starts, people say, well, look at the little coverage, because at this point, in the midst of all the Trump news, North Korea, hurricane, people are like, yeah, okay, let's see when the trial starts and the real,
I think that's fair. And so, in fact, there was a problem today in the court, a little dust up in the courtroom today where the judge told Menendez's lawyer to shut up for a second. There is an interesting thing. If he is convicted, will the Democrats say that he should resign, as they said Ted Stevens should resign? He was a Republican from Alaska. But also, Greg, what if Governor Chris Christie gets to appoint a successor before the end of his term?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Choose you.
No, you know what? I just want CNN to do this so I could see Ana Navarro's response.
To Menendez?
Yes. I just want to see how outraged she becomes over this. Look, there is a reason why this isn't getting a lot of attention. There are no visuals. All we see is B-roll of a guy, a middle-aged man, walking up and down stairs in a courthouse. I mean, it's hard to make that exciting. You got to have an intern in a blue dress to make a scandal good.
Or and at least a beret. Last for a month.
Yeah, beret, and beret would be nice. But in this case, I mean, it's like you can't compare this to the release of Dancing with the Stars. We just found out today.
Speaking of Dancing with the Stars, Rod Blagojevich, the former
Democrat
governor of Illinois, tried to sell that Senate seat when Barack Obama was elected to the presidency. And I think he ended up doing less time on Dancing with the Stars than he did.
I forgot that he was on.
Yeah,
he was on.
He was on.
He did slightly better than Tucker Carlson.
Blago was on. But Chris Christie, he's got a great opportunity here. Because after the Bridgegate scandal,
not as good as Geraldo. Yeah, Geraldo did it
He
last,
won, I
last
believe.
season.
Yeah, but Chris Christie could appoint himself.
He didn't win.
If not, he could sell that seat on a game show or on a reality show. Imagine that.
I mean, what does he have to
next
lose?
U.S. Senator, if Bob Menendez is in fact convicted.
All right, well, we solved everything.
This year has produced a lot of great options for Dancing with the Stars.
That's true.
Some from this network.
Okay.
Wow. All
Greg's
right.
on a roll. Let's go to
A
commercial.
liberal pressure group has tens of millions of dollars in offshore investments. Why? Greg has a story up next.
So this is funny. You ever heard of the Southern Poverty Law Center? They're a hard left outfit that loves to label people as extremists. Their ever-growing list seems to defame everyone. Ben Carson, he's an extremist. Rand Paul. They called Maajid Nawaz an anti-Muslim extremist. And get this. He's a moderate Muslim battling religious extremism. It makes no sense. There's Ursi Ali, a black feminist who protests against genital mutilation. SPLC placed her name in a guide to anti-Muslim extremists. So that's extreme, being against genital mutilation? I wonder what they'd make of Gandhi. But that's not the funny part. It's the money. This poverty center has loads of it, a $320 million endowment, and chucks almost 20% of it into offshore equities, Cayman Islands stuff. I don't understand it. So this poverty group sits on a pile of offshore dough. That's like a personal trainer with a gut. Or a priest with a harem. The center paid out $20 million in salaries in 2015, but provided just $61 grand in legal assistance. So the Southern Poverty Law Center appears to have no poverty and do virtually no law. It's the most misleading name since the Democratic Party. Yes, count it. Worse, their love for calling people haters incites haters into action. The maniac who shot Stephen Scalise liked the law center on his Facebook page. And a terrorist who attacked the Family Research Council back in 2012, shooting a security guard, did so after the SPLC labeled them a hate group. He was a fan, too. I don't know, filthy rich, linked to violence. I think the SPLC might end up having to put itself on its own list. Indeed, Jesse. It's a pretty amazing story. I have a theory that no one goes after this group because of the name. You hear Southern Poverty Law Center, you go, oh, they must be a really good outfit, and you don't want to be on their bad side.
That's true, and the media does this because they cover for them. They should actually put a little D next to their name because they're really an activist group. I should get into the charity business.
You should.
I mean, you can fight poverty with parking money offshore. The Clinton Foundation can take millions from the Saudis to fight for women's rights. Al Sharpton can shake you down and then not pay taxes, but then the IRS will go after the Tea Party. That's exactly what happens. I think this place started with noble intentions.
I think so.
To go after the KKK, and then they morphed into some smear machine, and they pay all these salaries, and they raise all this money, do nothing. They have this hate map which links in regular family values conservatives with Klansmen. One guy shoots these people up because he looks at the map, but Palin puts up a map, and the media makes her the bad guy.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a map. It was just a thing with like a little round circle. So, Juan, you're pals with Ben Carson. You know he's a nice guy. He's on the list. He's been on the list. So have moderate Muslims trying to reduce the Islamic extremism in their own religion. Why do they do this? Why do you think SPLC makes it such a blanket hate statement for everybody?
Well, I don't know that it's blanket, but I will say this. I think they provide a public service, but I think it's one that conservatives are very uptight about because they feel that, in fact, they are being labeled as hate groups when they have arguments about, for example, let's say Family Research Council, about attitudes towards transsexuals or gay, whatever. So they say, well, we're just expressing our religious values and views, but the Southern Poverty Law Center says they're hateful views. Or after Charlottesville, you get Apple and Tim Cook millions of dollars pouring into Southern Poverty Law Center, Google.
To use the phrase virtue signaling, once again, I hate doing that.
Right, but I'm just saying, so I think lots of people see them as virtuous and don't get into the finances. So the Weekly Standard has this piece about them having offshore investments, and apparently it was recommended by their investment counselors as a way to protect their assets. Nonetheless, I think what this is about is the right not liking the idea that somebody's labeling them.
But you know what? It's interesting if they don't. they label somebody's against traditional. They have traditional marriage beliefs and they're against gay marriage, but they don't behead gays or throw them off buildings. But somehow that's missing from their.
No, but the people who do behead gays and throw them off buildings, and the people who don't let women have any civil liberties and kill them for adultery, those people go ahead and shuttle money to the Clinton Foundation, which is completely different. Here now, I'm wondering, is this a tax-exempt organization? Are they in fact not paying taxes? Is it a 501c3 or a 501c4? Then it's a money laundering operation. So you know what they do, and I don't know which came first, the Southern Poverty Law Center or the egg, but it looks like, you know, they looked at the Clinton Foundation and they sort of mirror one another, but the labeling is very, very subjective. And, you know, we're in such a politicized era that unfortunately people who are fans of groups like this, they are so obsessed with confirmation bias that they don't do any sort of investigation where they would be even slightly curious about the other side or curious about an objective observer. So
I don't think the Klan was too incurious. They tried to burn them down.
Well, it doesn't sound like they're doing anything with the Klan. It sounds like if you are poor and in the South, you're much better off getting a job here because they pay a lot more money to massage one another than they do to actually help other people who, according to this raw data. I mean, that's not my opinion. That is the...
No, I think that, I don't know about all the numbers. I don't know how it compares to other nonprofits. But I will say... But I will say that it's very important, I think, that somebody is looking at the growth of these neo-Nazis and white supremacist groups across the country.
Dana, let's look at who they're looking at. Majid Nawaz. This is a guy that is basically a hero. He's risking his life every day, coming out against radical extremists.
He's one of the very few who's willing to come out and talk about it.
Puts him on a hate list, basically targeting. This is why people don't like to be labeled, because they're in danger. This guy's already in danger. Well, he's doing more than anybody.
And I don't know about his story in particular, but I do know Ayaan Hirsi Ali. And there are real world consequences for this type of targeting because she lives with 24/7 security. She has a husband and 2 young children, and she's never able to rest easy because these Muslim extremists are after her.
They murdered her with Theo Van Gogh on the street.
The other thing is, the Weekly Standard asked the ACLU, do you have offshore accounts, and do you... The answer was no. So I think that there is a clear difference there, and nobody would say that the ACLU isn't actually doing the work that they say they are. I do wonder if Elizabeth Warren will ask the Southern Poverty Law Center to bring that money back to the United States. So she asks everybody else to.
They've been asking them to repatriate it. Absolutely.
I have an offshore account. It's a jar of coins down by the river. I have it on a string.
Way offshore.
In case everything goes bad, I'm pulling that.
Is that how you buy the ingredients for your hobo chili?
You know I do. My hobo chili has some very interesting ingredients. Some of it is hobo. The hosts of The View spent the morning bashing President Trump again and lashed out at their invited guest, the Huckabee family, for supporting the president. It's in our new segment called What Do You Expect?
Big country. Well, hello. Welcome back. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her father, former Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee, also the former governor of Arkansas, dropped by The View, where the hosts shamelessly aired their grievances. It's not even Festivus about President Trump.
Trump, the things that he says about women are just horrendous, and we all know that, so let's not pretend that he hasn't said some horrifying things about women. Okay? We know that. Just nod. You don't have to say anything, just nod, because you know it's true. Blink. Having said that, how can you let your daughter defend him?
Well, he's also empowered a lot of women. I mean, he's given my daughter an incredible opportunity.
Anecdotal.
No, look at the women that he has hired, not only in the White House, but also the women that he's hired in the private sector.
How paternalistic. What, are we living under Sharia law? How could you allow your daughter? Well, Ms. Sanders also was quick to defend the president from the onslaught. Watch.
I've spent a lot of time with the president. I've never felt anything but respected and empowered to do exactly what I'm there to do every day, and that is my job. And, I think he's an equal opportunity president. He hits men just as hard. Women want equal opportunity, and this president certainly gives it to them.
They know what they're getting on that show, Dana. They know exactly what they're walking into. Joy Behar has turned into an undead version of Marianne from Brooklyn. I mean, it's very difficult to listen to her harping. If you were in that position, which oddly enough you have been in that position, would you have gone?
Well, I was never invited on The View when I was press secretary, and I always felt like it was better as a Republican woman just be like, not go on. But I admire her, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, for going on because you have to try. Like, it's one thing to just blow off the women's magazines and The View and other things, just to be like, oh, they'll never understand me. They're never going to give Trump a chance. They'll never understand my conservative viewpoints. But that's not necessarily always the case. And that's a big audience. And I think, obviously, she comports herself extremely well. And they are a famous modern political family. I can see why they wanted them there. And I think to a person, they all said that they're big fans of Mike Huckabee.
They did. No, Joy Behar said that that's her favorite Republican, and she knows so many because she's so fair-minded. What did you make of the exchange?
Well, I don't want to criticize The View before my book tour, so I'm going to cede the rest of my time to Juan. No, I'm kidding. I think to go on The View as a conservative, you have two options. One, the strategy is you go on there and you fight, and you turn into a brawl, and it goes viral, and you try to dominate. Bill O'Reilly has done that, and Coulter has done that. That's high risk, high reward. I wouldn't recommend everybody do that. Or you go on and you kill them with kindness.
And that's
or you're self-loathing.
And you smile, you're self-deprecating, and you laugh about it, and it's right, exactly. So I think that was part of their strategy a little bit. I think the White House communications team deserves a lot of credit. Hope Hicks, the new director, for putting them on. If that was her idea, I think that's a great idea, putting them on together. Mike is very disarming. He's very relatable. He's very charming. And Sarah, I thought, showed a real personal side to her when she was talking about being a mom, too, but also didn't give an inch when they attacked her boss. And I thought she was tough. I thought she was professional, and she did a great job.
And Greg, she's used to that. She's used to the onslaught every day and that shark-infested D.C. journalism.
I have to say, I've been very impressed with her. She's a tough cookie. She looks like she'd be an amazing prison guard. Like she'd be walking down with that, like the thing clinging, like, get your food. She's like a tough lady. But you know what the thing is? For once, I would like to watch The View and be surprised. Yeah. Like, I'd like to see something come out of somebody's mouth that I couldn't have seen a mile away. I mean, everything that comes out of their mouth is like a Norwegian cruise ship. You can see it just coming. It's like, oh, here it comes. Oh, I know what's happening now. It's coming at me.
Anecdotal.
I mean, it's just it's so bad. And the thing is about the idea of like the two kinds of ways you can approach a show as a guest, they really want you to disown your values.
That's right.
If you disown your values and say, you know, I'm not really pro-life, I'm pro-choice, they'll go, oh, now you're a Republican that we like because you like to kill babies.
That actually happened.
That happened,
yes.
Yeah, with Tommy Lahren. It was, you know, that she took a real shot with that one. She took a real hit claiming that she was pro-life on the show. But you have to be careful not to compromise yourself in those moments and not to throw too much red meat. You have to remain authentic and true to who you are. I heard that you are being auditioned as a co-host for The View.
Is that right? I would fit in. I think, you know, given my low or high estrogen levels. Yes, I think that would be just fantastic. You know, as you get older, these things happen to you. I must say, I'm glad I'm not the one that said the woman who's comparable to a prison guard. I don't.
No, that was a compliment.
Is that
sexist or something? Am I sexist for saying that she's tough? Okay.
Greg likes gladiator movies.
Is that right?
And he's been to a Turkish
Yeah, but it sounds like Nurse Hatchet. I don't think so.
No, I said very positive.
But I will.
Don't twist my words.
But I think that when you hear, you know, Joy Behar ask the question, how do you defend this guy when he's, you know, tells a lot of things that just aren't true, is a legitimate question. And a legitimate question for her to answer, and she never answers it. She says, oh, well, he's an equal opportunity. He's hard on men, hard on women. Sounded evasive for the press secretary, didn't it?
Well, I'm not going to be evasive. We've got the most powerful hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic. It's heading toward the United States. That almost looks fake. It is not. It is all too real. It is Irma. We will discuss when the 5 returns in moments.
Rethink what's...
The largest ever hurricane in the Atlantic is barreling toward the United States. Florida bracing for a possibly devastating direct hit. Let's get the latest on Irma's path from Chief Meteorologist Rick Reichmuth at the Fox Weather Center. Rick?
Well, hard to believe we have 3 hurricanes in the Atlantic right now. That's Jose. Will probably move very close to the area that just was pummeled overnight here across the Lesser Antilles. Then we have Katia in the Gulf of Mexico. That is going to move into Mexico, but it's this Hurricane Irma, Category 5. Now it's just to the north of Puerto Rico. And fortunately for Puerto Rico, the worst of the winds stayed just to the north of the island. So we saw certainly some very strong winds and some strong rain, but I don't think we saw the worst of it. Take a look at what's going to happen over the next day or so. Turks and Caicos tomorrow is going to get pummeled by a Category 5 storm. And into Friday, we're going to see that in towards the Bahamas. And after that is where we start to have a lot of questions. We still, unfortunately, have a lot of questions. This takes us towards Saturday, and then we know it's going to make a right-hand turn. Where that happens, we still can't say. In fact, a lot of our model runs, even though there looks to be a little bit of a consensus here, we still see them shifting back and forth. You'll also notice maybe about a 90-mile spread there in these turns. That 90 miles could mean the difference between a Cat 4, Cat 5 landfall hurricane in Miami, or maybe it's staying out to shore. So a lot of people still need to be watching this very closely, including everybody in the Florida Peninsula, the Florida Keys as well. But it will also tell you up across places of Georgia and in towards South Carolina. Want to just quickly show you one of our models, a very reliable model, brings a Cat 4 hurricane right here Sunday midday or so towards the Miami area, then moving back offshore, probably strengthening again and moving back again onshore around areas between Savannah and Charleston. So lots of questions, unfortunately, Juan, still more questions than answers about the U.S. impact. We know there will be some, though, so we still have to continue to watch it closely.
Rick, thanks so much. That's kind of shocking, coming right on the heels of what happened in Texas. And Rick Scott, the governor of Florida, says, get out.
Get out.
Dana?
He said you save yourself, basically. But when Rick showed that model of the hurricane possibly hitting between Savannah and Charleston, just a year ago, Hurricane Matthew hit that area. It was right before the election. It hardly got any attention, but it did a lot of damage. And people are still recovering from that storm. So I hope that the storm goes out to sea and doesn't hurt those folks again.
Kennedy, what about the Caribbean getting banned hard?
Oh, I know. It really isn't. It's terrifying that there are these other storms sort of swirling just on the heels of Irma. But it's very interesting because the evacuation orders obviously very different than what we saw with Hurricane Harvey. And that was a rain event that no one could have anticipated. And the damage from rain and wind, obviously very different people in South Florida particularly are unfortunately very used to these storms. And many of them lived through Andrew 25 years ago.
That's right.
And Rick Scott today said, this is stronger than Andrew. Get out now.
Oh, boy. We're going to be closely following this massive storm for a while to come. Stay with us. Also, stay with us for one more thing. It's up next.
It's time now for one more thing, Greg.
Well, my podcast is up right now. Go to foxnewspodcast.com. I'm interviewing the band Dream Machine. It's quite delightful. I'm sure you'll like it. Now let's go to this. Greg's secret to happiness. You know, sometimes you only do two things in life, and that's a hammock and just one single rice snack. Take a look at this little fella. Now, the key to happiness is that you find a comfortable place to relax, and you just take your time and you just nibble away. You don't want to eat too fast because you're lying on the back and you could choke on that.
Right.
But that's the secret to happiness right there. And often if you can enlist somebody to help scratch in your head at some point, that would be really nice. Oh, there it is. Although to that little guy, he's not sure what that is. He's not saying that's a finger or anything.
You know, that was fake news, Greg. That was not a rice snack. That looked like shredded wheat.
Oh, damn it.
Juan.
Oh, well, American astronaut Peggy Whitson returned to Earth from the International Space Station Saturday. This was a historic return. She's the American astronaut who spent the most total days in space during her career, male or female, and she's also the oldest female astronaut to travel to space at 57 years old. The thing she missed the most while in space, pizza and flushing the toilet. Normally, don't ask. By the way, Whitson's from Houston, and she made a point to thank her Houston coworkers for staying at NASA during the flooding.
That's great.
Also back on that one was Jack Fisher, and I actually got a call from space from him. He's a great Coloradan Bronco fan, but that's not my one more thing. I also have a podcast. It's the I'll Tell You What podcast. It's usually Perino and